Live and recording.
All right. My name is Derek Chandra. I am finance chair of the finance committee of the City of Albany Industrial Development Agency. I'll call this meeting to order at 12:28. First order of business, as usual, is to roll call first, I should say. We have four here today. Leah, John Maxwell, myself. I'd ask for a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes and accept them as presented in the materials. Second. All those in favor? Aye. All right. First order of business then is report of chief financial, or second order of business, report of chief financial officer.
Within your packets is the quarterly comparison actual budgets for your review. The first quarter just ended. I think it's right where we expected. I mean, there are some projects coming in the door, so hopefully our revenue will increase the next few months.
Fingers crossed.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Any questions? All right. Move on to unfinished business, 48 CC, 48 Corporate Circle, a warehouse project. Discussion for approving resolutions. So,
Thank you, Chair. Sure. So 48 CC LLC is the project that was just previously the subject of a public hearing in which no public comments were received. This project was previously discussed at the prior IDA Finance Committee meeting in detail. What you're receiving now is the financial analysis that supplements what was put up on our website and sent out via email last week. What I would like to do right now is to quickly run through the staff summary, the framework scoring, and also the fact that a third party was brought on board to analyze the reasonableness of the costs. So again, this project proposes the construction of a 93,000 square foot warehouse distribution facility on what is approximately 8 acres of vacant land. Looking at the revenue gain to the taxing jurisdictions, if looking at status quo taxes, if the project was not to occur over the course of 15 years, this parcel will bring in approximately $612,000 to taxing jurisdictions. The projected pilot payment impacts over that same 15-year period are about $2.3 million for a net benefit to taxing jurisdictions of about $1.78 million. Looking at the increase in value to the property, the current value of the property is approximately $680,000 with an anticipated future improved assessed value of $3.87 million for a net increase of approximately $3.18 million. This is an approximate $10.5 million investment, and we will run through the point-by-point framework scoring momentarily. Prior to that, I would like to note that as we do with all projects seeking real property tax abatements, the Capital District Regional Planning Commission brought on board to assist in so much as they provided an in-plan economic impact analysis study looking at the direct, indirect, and induced effect of the employment on site for both the temporary construction period and the permanent operations impact. Looking at the temporary construction impact or the direct, indirect, and induced effect, that is estimated to be approximately $9.8 million. And looking at the permanent operations when the building is up and running, that same direct, indirect, and induced total effect of $2.1 million annually. Of note, this project is looking to create approximately 48 construction jobs and 10 full-time equivalent positions. Jumping into the framework score, I would first just like to note that due to the request of an abatement schedule outside of what the framework typically provides for, the project was evaluated outside of the framework, and as such, a third-party consultant was brought on board to assist in both the reasonableness of the financial assumptions and the reasonableness of the assistance being requested. And an executive summary of that entity's findings was provided as part of the materials. As part of the board-only materials, you do have a full memorandum from that consultant, which speaks to the fact that the request at hand is within reasonable parameters. Coming down, Under the revitalization overall category and identify priority, the project receives 1 point for being a tax exempt or vacant parcel. Identify area. Project receives 1 point for consisting of a project involving manufacturing and distribution. And of note, while you don't see a point for technology, we did want to call out that depending on who the end tenant or tenants are in this project, that may well be someone that is in that sector, which is defined really as that tenant would, through the course of business, result in the creation, retention, or expansion of a tech sector facility. So there is a high likelihood in conversations had with the applicant who's here with us today that may be one of the tenants or the tenant. So just food for thought there. Staying with the identified growth area, the project receives 1 point for being an identified, existing cluster, which is industrial. It's located within the industrial park off New Garner Road on Corporate Circle. Jobs, the project receives 1 point for an expected 10 full-time equivalent jobs and 1 point for an expected 48 construction jobs. Financial commitment, the project receives 2 cumulative points for the $10.5 million investment. And under the community commitment header, the project receives 1 point for committing to regional labor. 90% of regional labor during construction will be utilized on site, as defined as an 11 county radius around Albany. And 1 point for city of Albany labor. Whereas 15% or more of City of Albany residents will be comprised of the construction workers on site. That's 9 points total. If that tech sector end user is involved in the project, that would be 10 points. So that being said, we did jump into a deep dive at last month's finance committee meeting on the finances of this project. We can do so again at your discretion in the executive session. Staff would note that there have been no changes to that analysis since last month.
Does anybody feel the need to go into executive session to discuss finances? I don't. Okay. Move on to the independent.
Sure. So in looking at the request at hand, which was for a 15-year pilot payment scenario during which the payment schedule is calculated at 38% of the assessment value. That is different than what the framework had previously described. It's a 5 years longer. The previous commercial schedule was for 10 years. However, we would like to note that the end result of this request in terms of the impact of the taxing jurisdictions and the actual abatements is very, very similar to the community commitment commercial pilot schedule that the framework does a lot for. So while on paper it does look quite different in form and functionality, it is similar to a previous schedule that had been baked into our framework. We are bringing on third-party consultants for all projects going forward until we finalize the project and evaluation and assistance framework, which we expect to do by the end of this year. The reason why it's taken longer than everyone would have wanted to would be the reassessment that's underway at the City of Albany, and we want to make sure that we're aligning our metrics with where that is going to pan out so that we coincide with them.
So the request is deemed reasonable.
That is correct.
Does anybody have anything further? I would say it is a relatively light abatement compared to abatements that were usually provided here, comparatively. Yeah.
Correct. I think we're much more used here that the committee and board is seeing the residential requests coming through. So of note, this is a product that the City of Albany needs. There's not a lot of new industrial space able to come online in the 400-year-old city. So we would expect this product to be very well received in the market and should be a great thing for that area of the city.
So the Industrial Development Agency is doing an industrial project.
That's correct.
All right. Great. Well, anybody have anything further? All right, and I would call for a motion for positive recommendation to move this forward to the full board.
I'll make Your turn, sir.
All in favor? Aye. All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, next on the agenda is Freedom Springs. We just had a hearing on this, received no comments at the hearing. However, there were comments that were submitted by mail and email. So I'll hand it over to Andy and great, you want to through it?
Thank you. Very similar to the last project that we just talked about in terms of the cadence as to getting here today. We have the applicant here in the room with us. I can answer any questions. This project was discussed at length at last month's finance committee as well. Again, we'll run through the staff summary, the framework score, and then staff is going to recommend or request, I should say, to go into an executive session to discuss the finances of a particular entity. And we'll take it from there. So without further delay, running through the summary again, which we just heard at the public hearing, during which 3 written comments were received. Of note, after acting as the public hearing officer, did give a synopsis of those if we wanted to discuss those in more in depth as well. The project proposes to construct an approximate 100,000 square foot, 3-story multifamily affordable housing complex containing 120 residential units and approximately 3,600 square feet of commercial space on the ground floor, in addition to 86 off-street parking spaces. The project is going to be funded in part through 4% low-income housing tax credits. Of the total residential units on site, approximately 30 here are going to be reserved for veterans, at risk of homelessness, with an additional 30 reserved for seniors at risk of homelessness. The remaining units will serve income qualifying residents that fall between 50 and 80% of the area median income. Additionally, as was mentioned during the public hearing, the support services for the residents on site will be provided by Gateway Hudson Valley. We did at a previous meeting distribute their most recent annual report as well. Looking at the revenue gain to the taxing jurisdictions, if the project were to not occur, the status quo taxes on the parcel that we are discussing over the course of the 30-year requested shelter rent pilot is approximately $1.45 million. Looking at the projected impact of the pilot payments, both for the commercial piece and the residential piece over 30 years, those payments are expected to be approximately $6.2 million for net benefit of about $4.7 million. The property value increase, current value of the what's essentially vacant land parcel there is $659,000. The anticipated future value of just over $7 million for a net increase of $6.4 million. Again, we'll run through the framework scoring momentarily, similarly to how we just went through the last project. Since there is a request for a payment in lieu of tax, real property tax exemption, we did work with CDRPC to get an in-plan analysis run, and that looked at the temporary construction impact as well as the permanent operations impact over the course of either construction period or operations. The construction impact approximately $39 million, and the permanent operations impact approximately $1.1 million. This project expects to create approximately 9 full-time equivalent jobs and approximately 100 construction jobs. Working through the framework scoring, just of note, since this project does consist of purpose-built affordable housing, for our CADA policy, projects like that are automatically analyzed outside of the framework. Of note, the request at hand for the residential piece is a 30-year 10% for shelter rent, which aligns exactly with CADA policy, and we'll dive into the commercial request momentarily. Under the revitalization header, target geography, the project receives 1 point for being in a high vacancy census tract, and the project receives 1 point for being in a business district, which is the Central Avenue there. Under identified priority, the project receives 1 point for being a tax exempt or vacant parcel of land. an identified growth area. The project receives 1 point for being a conversion to residential. Job creation, the project receives 1 point for the estimated 9 full-time equivalent jobs. And construction jobs, a cumulative 2 points for the estimated 100 jobs to be there on site during construction. Financial commitment, the project receives 3 cumulative points as it is an expected investment of about $46 million. And of note, under community commitment, and I will defer to the applicant who's here with us today. Since the project does consist of low-income housing tax credits, there may well be requirements for MWBE participation and such on site. However, based on the fact this is being analyzed outside of the framework, and oftentimes those levels do not perfectly align here, that is not a community commitment that is being committed to as part of this application, but it is something they may into to the state of New York. Sure.
Yeah, through HFA financing in Albany County, I believe it's community 30% for minority and women-owned businesses and 6% for SBDOB, veteran business. At the goals, typically we hit those, and I apologize, I can't remember which is 10, which is 20, but it's cumulative 30 for the two.
W is 20.
Great.
And that was 10 points, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
so they landed at 10. So again, we did bring on a third-party consultant to look strictly at the commercial requests. Again, the shelter rent payment is in line with CADA policy. However, the commercial payment is the request at hand is a 15-year abatement schedule, starting at 100% for the first 5 years, then at 75% for the next 5, and then 50% for the last 5. That is calculated on a pro rata square footage percentage of the project. So the project commercial space is, as we mentioned, it was about 3,600 square feet. So that comes out to, as a percentage of total project square footage, just over 3%. So this isn't a large impact here, but the reason in speaking with the applicant and working through the request to deviate from what our framework provided for, this requested pilot is there to enable the expected tenant to be what is defined as a community service facility. So that would be a tenant that is complementary to the residents on site, is more typically mission driven, if I'm speaking correctly. And so this will enable them to both attract and retain that type of tenant. The third party did come back with a recommendation that the financial assumptions and the requested assistance are reasonable. That executive summary was made part of the materials that was distributed last week, and you also have the full memorandum of her analysis as of your materials that Cassidy passed out to you at the beginning of the meeting. So if there are any general questions on that, we can field those now, and if not, then we'd like to recommend going into a quick executive session.
Any questions? All right, then I guess I need motions for executive session.
Yeah, to discuss finances of an organization.
So moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor? All right.
I don't.
You give that second on the tax.
Thanks, James. I know. I need my eclipse glasses.
Right, so I'm saying.
Our repeats are back on YouTube.
All right, we're back in regular session, executive session ended at 12:59, no action was taken. What else we need to discuss, before asking some questions of the developers?
If we run through everything.
Okay.
It's at your discretion, as always.
Well, I think, it might wanna stand up or whatever, but can you give some clarity to what you're going for the planning board tomorrow night and what is the status of, you represented here in the past that all the issues have kind of been hashed out, neighborhood is okay. And now I'm getting contact from neighborhood associations, that they're not happy with something that's going in front of the planning board tomorrow. A zoning, not zoning change, but some sort of variance, I think, so.
No
if-
variance,
If you could,
it's a waiver.
Okay.
The orientation of the building, last planning board meeting that we were at, a waiver was given for the, location of the main door going in. And that change primarily happened when we first set the, project up, we had the building pushed back a little bit closer to the park. And that, they didn't like it, it was recommended that we move it, so we did. The waiver for the building orientation would have been on last month's planning board agenda, but it was a mistake. They forgot to put it on there, and that's why it's there for tomorrow night. I did speak with Avi, just this morning before we came to this meeting. He was asking a couple of questions. I understand that they're putting, their, staff is putting together a recommendation to the planning board to give the approval tomorrow night. We do have a couple of residents that have been very vocal through the whole process. We've tried to communicate with them. We've made significant adjustments for when we initially started the project, where we were at 187 units. And we reduced to 120, we're at 5 stories. There was a zoning change that happened very early on in our process, so we were able to respond to that. Likewise with the commercial building, it was really something that they want to see, not only for the comp plan that recommends it, the zoning ordinance recommends it. So we accommodated the commercial building as well as part of our project. But we're not going to deny that there is some opposition to our proposal that we have there. But we believe there's a silent majority that isn't, really heard. But the fact that we have the planning board recommendation coming tomorrow that the planning board approves, recommends approval of the site plan, I think is a very positive sign.
Emma, do you have any information you want?
No, I also spoke, or played phone tag with Abby this morning, and Abby mentioned a similar thing and mentioned that the second waiver is really about but I printed it out because I'm not as familiar with the planning code, but that, the board already had adopted one waiver for the orientation of the building, for the door. But to be cautious, the planning staff has recommended that they submit a waiver, a similar provision of the code. So there's 2 different provisions of the code that essentially state the same thing. So the waiver, the second waiver is kind of covering a similar thing that's already been covered in the first waiver. So out of an abundance of caution, the planning staff is recommending that second waiver. Avi has also mentioned to us that they expect this approval tomorrow, and the planning staff is recommending approval contingent on kind of final department sign off, and it's just the water department at this point.
All right.
Is it true, my understanding is that the design has changed such that there is no access from Anthony Street at the time, correct?
Well, no access via vehicles?
Yeah.
That's correct. We do have a pedestrian access so that our residents can be part of the park environment. And that was something that we had proposed early on. There was some neighborhood pushback on that, but we got to planning board wanted that. So we responded to the planning board. We think it's the appropriate thing to do for our residents.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Yeah, for the record, I think, the IDA doesn't really, take into account the planning and the zoning and the approval process here. We strictly, look at the financial package, the vacancies, for our discussion here. Again, this is a low-income project, and its pilot is essentially a 10% shelter rent, which is in line with virtually every other low-income project that we have in the city with the Albany Housing Authority and other private entities. So if anybody has anything else, I'd call for a motion for positive recommendation for approving resolution.
I'll make a motion.
All right, second,
Second.
all right. All those in favor?
Sorry, this one,
Yeah.
sorry to jump in. You're absolutely right. We don't deal with, the local planning, but we do require them to follow.
Correct, yeah.
So there's no exemption or, allowance for not following local rules by going through the IDA.
Right. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, all those in favor? Aye, all right. Thank you. We'll see you next week. All right. Next order of business, 575 Broadway Holdings. Jeff Buell has been sitting there patiently for almost an hour.
Patient, by the way, this is me.
So I'll just start by saying, obviously 575 Broadway Holdings is 575 Broadway, formerly known as the Kiernan
Thank you.
Plaza. We're dropping that to Union Station officially as of yesterday or before. And so, what we wanted to lead off with today is obviously this is such a prominent and iconic building in our downtown core. It is a critical building to see the future use of it continue in a positive manner. And so we'll be working closely with the project applicant and our third-party consultant to really ensure that that the abatements that we have in place for this project that we review, are reasonable and can ensure project success. And with that.
Just real quick and then turn it over to the committee and obviously the applicant who can speak to it more eloquently and in more detail than I. This is essentially the historic renovation and redevelopment of the three-story structure. You see up on the screen, the 575 Broadway was built in the early 1900s as Albany's Union Station. It was a train station through the mid-60s. This redevelopment is going to result in a mixed-use structure, including approximately 30,000 square feet total of commercial retail space with various tenants and various tenants and various uses, as well as approximately 43 market rate apartments on the upper floors. And with that, I'll turn it over to the chair. Actually, any questions?
Yeah, I think this is one to discuss for a little while. Does anybody have any questions? Additionally, I would ask, could you talk about the effective inclusionary zoning on this project and how we're able to do it and?
Mostly due to the very low number that it is. So obviously the higher the apartments, it's gonna be more challenging. It's not easy, but really this is less of an inclusionary zoning conversation and more of a challenging building conversation. So, the tax rolls will list this thing at about 100,000 square feet. Be usable is closer to 60. So you're losing 40,000 square feet inside of it, which is difficult. I think you'll see the change in tendency over the past 30 years is probably led to everybody having this conversation with themselves where they talk themselves into the project in the mirror and say it's going to be really great. And then somebody new will be here in 15 years and say, well, this building's really hard. So, but I think if we all go into that, honestly, that's okay. So our goal here is to, one, let's save the building. It's not that it's in bad shape. It's just that it's a challenge to maintain it. I can tell you, do you guys record these ones?
Yes.
You're live and recording,
And it's being,
and it's live streamed on YouTube.
No, usually.
I've been tricked by a few reporters lately into speaking way too honestly, and then I have hour-long interviews on WAMC that I know I've been doing. So,
We
What-
currently
what-
have one watcher, it is me, and.
Great.
So it would be,
cool.
it's reserved on YouTube.
It's
for
safe.
true music.
Yeah, I think there's, a good, for instance, so we've already purchased this building, which is also unusual that we would buy a building and then come to you, but, such is life and timing. We went in there the first day and said, okay, we're gonna be private developers and shut down the systems here and let it just kind of fluctuate. And so we shut off the air conditioning, because it was January. The moment that we did, the temperature spiked to 94 degrees in the building, and the 4 tenants that are in there right now, not 4 businesses, but 4 people, were like, it's 94 degrees in here. And so the building has been operating for the past 10 years, basically full AC, full heat all seasons. Because it is old and hasn't been touched in so long that the mechanical systems are just shot. So what we're doing here is not what I would want to do in this building. I've told everybody, well, listen, I've been to a dozen union stations around the country. I love them. I'm obsessed with them. I know what to do. That's right. And we can't do it here right now. And I think that's okay. Obviously it would be a great hotel with 3 restaurants and a coffee shop and a library. That's Denver's Union Station. That would be awesome, but the market isn't here right now. What we desperately need in Albany are more people on the street. I said that in the business room this morning. It's not that there isn't anything to do here, it's that there just aren't enough people not doing it. So how do we get people on the street? And that's the upper floor, 43 units, that is making great use of the space. And then, as we discussed with Ashley and Andy, programmatically imperative that this ground level be commercial and retail space. It'll be more commercial because retail is such a challenge right now. But it'll be commercial, and it'll be what I'll call interactive commercial. So it'll be people need to go into this building to see certain things, and that will, the human throughput model of getting people into the building. Yeah, we're asking for a pilot for the first time ever. We've done $200 million in development here without asking for a pilot. This building needs a pilot. And it needs a very, very aggressive pilot that we'll keep punching at. But otherwise, we're happy to own it. It's obviously a very beautiful building. It's a staging piece. And I think, all joking aside, in 15 years here, when someone does come in and say, it's time for the next life, I hope that we are looking at a drastically changed downtown where this building can then become what it should be.
Jeff, just to clarify, you mentioned that you did purchase the building already.
Yep.
Would you be able to undertake the massive redevelopment that you're representing and planning without the abatements being requested by?
No, we'll close it down and put it up for auction. And not a joke, it's impossible. You'll see the numbers. I don't think there's a way where, the 3 partners who are endeavoring to take this project on make any money for 10 years.
Thank you.
All right. So this is the project introduction. And, consider it introduced.
Yes, we will be, working extensively with Jeff and his team in conjunction with the third party. And we hope to get this back to you soon with our full suite of financial analysis. At some point during this process, the applicant may, in open or an exempt session, be able to speak a little bit in more detail to the tenancy. And we'll revisit that as appropriate going forward.
Right.
Yeah, hope to be, I think, like publicly, we can probably, hopefully, fingers crossed, everybody says they're gonna do what they say they're gonna do. Within 2 months, we would be able to share who would be moving into the building.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next order of business, new business, but there being none. We will close that. The other business, agency update.
If you haven't noticed already, but I think Andrew has introduced himself to a bunch of you around the table already, but we have a new employee with us at Capillas Albany and the IDA and PNC, Andrew Begane. So you welcome him.
Welcome.
Treat him nice and give around. Director of Operations and Finance position, so that'll be a critical addition to the team.
Great.
Happy to have.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right.
Congratulations.
Sucker. All right. No other agency update, then compliance update.
Sure, just would like to, again, thank Emma and Cassidy and confirm that our suite of Paris reports and all other annual reporting requirements were submitted to the state. They've also been, uploaded onto our website, so we will, circle back, should we receive any questions from either of the, entities overseeing IDAs, be it the ABO or OSC, and we will, work with them to address anything, that they would like additional detail.
That's great. Thank you. I just want to point out that I remain uncompliant with the annual statement of financial disclosure. As I have many times.
Will be
But I still
compliant.
have time.
You'll be compliant before the deadline, rest assured.
Absolutely.
We'll make sure.
That should be covered in use compliance update now.
As the outstanding, item on my compliance.
Just, no, we're not above naming names, I guess, Sarah.
Right, I'm calling myself out here. All right, any other issues? Anything more to discuss? Then I call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye, we stand adjourned.
Please give us a second to go to the CRC. Sorry about that.
I'm just playing to the moment. We talked about everything and I was like, oh,
You apologize.
yeah, sorry about that. Well, I felt bad because you know, preps.
Yes.
Commensurate with the significance of my employment position.
All right.